Hello there. Tonight we take a slow walk with Aristotle, and we keep to plain words and small steps. Think of a calm room near closing time. A lamp is low, a bench is clear, a notebook waits for one simple line. That is our pace. We will talk about habit the way he meant it, not a trick or a twitch, but a path across a field that grows easier each time a foot passes over it. We will see how small choices add up, how a steady rhythm shapes the hand and the voice, and how a good life is built the way a craftsperson builds. Measure, cut, fit, and then put the tool back where the next hand can find it. Aristotle liked balance that fits the person and the hour. Not too much, not too little, just enough to let the day hold together. We will touch that idea softly, the middle that keeps courage from becoming noise and keeps generosity from becoming waste. We will meet practical wisdom, the quiet guide that asks what is truly needed here with these people at this time. We will look at how pleasure and pain teach, how friends shape each other by example, and how to repair a miss without turning it into a name you carry. There is nothing to memorize. There is no test in the morning. All you need is a breath that slows, a mind that notices, and a willingness to try one small act that you would be proud to repeat. If your eyes grow heavy, let them. The thoughts will keep their shape. When you wake, the path will still be there, a little clearer than before. For now the room is quiet, the lamp is kind, and the night is ready to help you rest while we begin. When Aristotle uses the word habit, he is not pointing at a nervous tic or a small trick of the hand. He means a settled state of character that you build by doing, a stable readiness to act in a certain way when the same kind of choice returns. Picture a field with tall grass. The first crossing is guesswork. The second is easier. By the 10th, a darker line shows where feet have learned to fall. Habit is that line. Each step lays it down. The line, once laid, guides the next step. It is not a cage. It is a road that begins as effort and ends as help. In the morning you still choose, but the choice is carried by a path you have already made. He sorts our inner life into three plain things so the mind does not have to hurry. There are feelings, like fear and desire and anger, which rise and fall like weather. There are powers, like the capacity to feel and the capacity to choose. And there are formed states, which sit between raw material and finished action. This middle thing is habit. You are not praised or blamed for the wind that touches the skin, he says, but for what you do when the wind arrives. A habit is a steadied hand on the tiller. At first you grip it hard. Later your grip eases, and the boat still holds its line. Over time, even the feelings learn to come when they should, in the size they should, because they have been taught by many small, decent acts. He measures a habit by its work and by its aim. A good habit is not only comfortable, it performs well under ordinary human conditions and serves a clear human good. Honesty lets speech carry truth without tearing the cord between people. Courage lets the body and voice move toward a cost when duty calls for that movement. Fairness keeps the table shared so a room can keep being a room. These do not grow by wishing. They grow by doing the kind of acts that have that quality again and again until the quality takes root and begins to live inside you. A blade becomes sharp by cutting wood cleanly, not by talking about sharpness. A person becomes just by doing just things, not by rehearsing speeches about justice. He cares about rhythm, because rhythm keeps effort from turning harsh. Early on you may need reminders. You set a cue on the phone to return messages at a kind hour. You place a small card on the desk that reads, "Clear fact first." You write a line the night before that says, "Arrive 5 minutes early so another person's day can start on time." At first these feel like props. With practice they become part of your hand. The return of a message is no longer a test. It is simply something you do because the work and the bond both ask for it. The card on the desk can be put away. The line is already in your voice. Habit has become second nature, which is Aristotle's calm way of saying the path now guides even when you are tired. Balance keeps the path from wandering. He calls it the mean, the middle that fits the person and the hour. Courage sits between panic and reckless display. Generosity sits between tightness that calls itself prudence and waste that calls itself freedom. The mean is not a dull average. It is a fit. The coat that fits in winter keeps you warm without weighing you down. The right habit fits your role, your season of life, and the common good. It takes trial to feel that fit. You will lean too far and then correct. You will give too much in one week and too little in another. The correction is not shame. It is how a craftsperson learns the pressure that makes a clean cut. Because we learn by watching before we learn by defining, he ties habit to company. Place yourself near people whose steady acts you would like your hands to learn. A careful worker returns tools to their hooks. A fair manager names the shared aim before the disagreement. A neighbor keeps a promise about time even when no one is checking. Such pictures teach more than rules painted on a wall. In the same way, your small example teaches without speeches. A line written plainly invites a plain reply. A door held without theater plants the thought, I could do that. Habit is personal, but never private. You inherit tone from a room, and you give tone back to it. He also notes that law and custom help when they are shaped by good aims. A school bell that rings at the right hour teaches punctuality without scolding. A shop that closes on time teaches enough without a lecture on temperance. A house that eats at a table most nights teaches attention to company and to food. None of this removes choice. It removes confusion. Clear forms let the will move in straight lines. When forms are missing, energy leaks into searching and arguing. When forms are kind, energy is spared for the act itself. Pleasure and pain are teachers in this school. If the mind learns to take quiet pleasure in decent acts, the acts repeat. If it feels a clean pinch when it steps off the path, the correction comes sooner. This is not a call to chase thrills or to fear discomfort. It is a simple note about training. A runner learns to like the feeling of breath that is full but not desperate. A reader learns to like the silence that lets a page speak. A decent person learns to like the small relief that follows truth told without a sting. The body and the mind both come to enjoy what is good for them when practice has had time to work. All of this rests on choices small enough to do today. You do not become someone else by morning. You pick one corner of the day and improve it until the improvement stops feeling like a project. You answer messages in a window you keep. You put tools where a stranger would look for them first. You speak the request in a tone a tired ear can carry. You stop it enough so that appetite does not undo what care just did. These moves are not dramatic. They are durable. They wear well under ordinary weather. At night the test is gentle. Do the formed states you live in make it easier to do the next fitting thing? Or do they make it harder? If your habits save you time for people and duties, they are good habits. If they cost you time and push you toward noise, they are not good yet. You do not bruise yourself with names. You plan the next small correction and you sleep. In the morning, the same field waits. The grass is a little lower where you walked yesterday. The line is there to help you find your way. Aristotle likes plain arithmetic. What we do many times becomes what we are ready to do next time. A single generous act does not yet make a generous person, the way a single swallow does not make a spring. But a season of swallows tells you what kind of weather to expect. Habit is whether you have trained. Repetition supplies that training. Each time you choose a fitting act, you add one very small weight to the same side of the scale. The weight is not much. The side grows steady because the weights keep coming. In the beginning, you notice each one. After a while, the scale stands at rest and helps you choose before you even feel yourself choosing. This is why Aristotle calls habit a state. It is not a moment. It is the furniture the mind keeps in the room. Because repetition is the carpenter, size matters. Acts must be small enough to repeat without strain, yet real enough to carry the quality you want to keep. A promise returned before night. A bill paid when due. A tone that explains before it corrects. These are not performances. They are pieces of wood cut to the same measure so the table will not wobble under a common meal. If the piece is too large, You will put off the cut and call yourself lazy. If the piece is too small, you will stack scraps and never on a table. The mean applies here as well. Choose a cut you can make today and tomorrow and most days after that, and let its quiet rhythm persuade your hands. Repetition needs a place to sit, so Aristotle stands it next to form. Good houses teach their guests what to do without speeches. A hook near the door turns "Where are my keys?" into "Here they are." A bowl by the sink turns "Should I drink water?" into "Yes." A calendar with true times turns "When?" into "Now." Law and custom are public forms. Shelves and cues are private forms. Both are habits made visible. We are not weaker for using them. We are kinder to our future selves. Each form removes a step where attention could leak away. So the same act happens again without argument, and again, until repetition has done its quiet work and the act belongs to you. Pleasure and pain keep score, and Aristotle wants you to read the card without superstition. If a decent act brings a clean sense of ease, the body and mind are more willing to repeat it. If a reckless act leaves a small ache, the same parts will hesitate next time. You can help this education along. Let yourself notice the relief that follows a promise kept. Let yourself notice the heaviness that follows a boast you did not need to make. Do not whip the mind. Do not bribe it with fireworks. You are training taste. A runner learns to like even breath. A musician learns to like a scale and tune. A decent life learns to like the feel of the fitting act, done on time, in a tone that leaves the room calmer than it found it. Because repetition can be blind, Aristotle pairs it with reason. He does not ask you to do the same thing forever because it is the same thing. He asks you to repeat acts that serve a human good. The object is not motion. The object is formation. If a routine stops serving the aim, if it wastes hours, if it crowds out care, if it turns temperance into rigid pride, reason must walk into the workshop and move the pegs. Keep the quality. Adjust the method. A shop that never revises a jig begins to injure hands. A life that never revises a rule begins to injure hearts. Repetition should bend to wisdom the way wood bends to steam before it sets. He warns about the company repetition keeps. We become like what we admire and like whom we stand beside. Put your hands where good hands have been. The careful clerk who closes the till with clean totals. The driver who yields without a speech. The nurse who adjusts the blanket and the light, then steps back so sleep can do its work. Stand near such pictures long enough and your muscles will borrow their rhythm. The reverse is true. Rooms where mockery pays and corners are cut will sell you their pays for free. Repetition does not ask your permission to educate you. It simply teaches, line after line, until your signature matches the handwriting of the room. When you miss, and you will, repetition gives you a tool for repair. Do the next instance well, and then the next. Do not make the miss into a name. Do not announce a new era. Return the pattern gently to its track. A musician who plays a wrong note does not stop the piece and explain. She plays the next bar in time. A mason who sets one brick poorly does not tear down the wall. He sets the next course true and fills the seam. The point of repetition is not to prevent all error. It is to make recovery natural and quick. In Aristotle's language, you do not collapse the habit because of one act that did not fit. You prove the habit by the way you resume it. There is a quiet science to linking acts so that one carries the next. Tie the morning to a sentence written the night before. Tie the reply you owe to the moment you open the program where replies live. Tie the end of a meeting to an honest summary and a single next step with a who and a when. These knots are small. They keep the rope from unraveling. Over time, the knots are part of the rope and you stop seeing them. What you see is a day that holds together. Aristotle would call this practical wisdom looking after habit, and habit looking after practical wisdom, each lending the other its strength so you do not spend your best hours reinventing doors. At the end of the chapter, Aristotle returns to the slow truth that keeps the impatient from breaking their tools. We become the kind of person we practice being, not in one leap, not by wishing, by the kind of day that can be repeated without doing harm. Repetition sets the ink. Character is the text that remains when the page has dried. Tonight you do not need to finish the book. You need one more line in the same hand, written clearly, then the lamp turned low. In the morning the path across the field will be a shade darker. Your feet will find it sooner. Your steps will argue less. And the life you are building will feel a little more like a room where good work is easy to begin. Aristotle watches not only what we do, but what we feel while doing it, and he treats those feelings as quiet instruments on a panel. When a just act begins to feel clean and welcome, the dial is turning the right way. When a small deceit tastes sweet, the dial needs attention. Pleasure and pain, for him, are not the goal of life, but they are the signals by which a life learns its course. A child first obeys because the good is wrapped in something pleasant. An adult aims to find the good itself pleasant, so that the work carries its own reward and does not have to be dragged every morning to the bench. Habits stick when pleasure begins to stand on the side of the fitting act and pain stands on the side of the miss. That is the simple hinge he keeps returning to. This is why he calls moral education a kind of taste training. A runner learns to enjoy even breath more than the first rush of speed. A musician learns to enjoy a true scale more than a showy mistake. A decent person learns to enjoy the quiet ease that follows a fair sentence said at the right time. Early on, you may need to pair the act with a helper. Music during cleanup, sunlight during a walk, a favorite cup beside your notebook when you answer messages. None of that is the point, but all of it tells the body, this is the lane we travel, until the lane itself is the comfort. In time, the reward is no longer the sugar around the pill. It is the peace that the act leaves behind when you close the door. Pain has its teaching too, and Aristotle will not waste it. He does not mean the drama of self-scolding. He means the small pinch that follows excess or cowardice or falsehood. Let it register, the way a craftsman lets a splinter sting long enough to learn what motion caused it. Then change the motion. If you snapped at someone, notice the heaviness that sits in the room afterward. Name it as a cost you do not want to pay tomorrow. Practice the sentence you will use next time that carries the same information without the extra heat. Pain, used this way, becomes a guardrail rather than a cliff. It keeps you from carving the same gouge through the same board. Because time can trick us. He asks you to be honest about when pleasure and pain arrive. The easy sweetness of delay comes now. The ache of crowding and apology comes later. The quiet pleasure of returning a promise comes now. The larger quiet of trust comes later. Habit forms where near pleasures are aligned with true goods, and where near pains are attached to acts that do harm. You can move the furniture so this alignment becomes natural. Put the tool where a stranger would look first. The small convenience makes the right action pleasant to begin. Put a boundary on the screen. The small inconvenience makes the drift toward midnight mildly unpleasant at the start. This is not ascetic theater. It is design, shaping the room so that the good is easier to like. Aristotle would have you practice micro-rewards that are not bribes. When you finish the decent act, an honest note, a fair correction, a careful tally, sit for one breath and notice the lightness it leaves. Name it, even quietly. That felt right. The naming is important. Minds forget what helped them. Naming stores the feeling next to the act so that, when the same choice returns, your hand reaches for it without drama. Do the same with the pinch. When you overfill the hour and something breaks, say, that cost more than it gave. No speeches, just labels placed where the next traveler, you tomorrow, will see them. He stretches the principle across the virtues so you can feel its range. In temperance, teach appetite to like enough. The pleasure is a clear head and a steady day, not the first 5 minutes of more. In courage, teach the body to like the small relief that follows a cost faced, an email sent, a boundary set, a truth told without cruelty. In justice, teach the mind to like the even weight of fair dealing. There is a specific quiet that follows paying what is owed on time and speaking of absences as if the person were present. None of this is flashy. All of it is repeatable, which is why it becomes you. Because feeling can drift, he couples it with practical wisdom, the part of you that asks, does this pleasure belong with this act for this person at this time? A laugh in a sick room may be kindness or carelessness, depending on who is waking. A long hour at the desk may be diligence or escape, depending on the duty you owe a friend. Pleasure is a good servant when wisdom holds the key. It is a poor manager when left with the plans. So each evening you glance at the panel. Where did I feel right about what was right? Where did I enjoy what did not actually help? What small change would teach my taste a truer lesson tomorrow? Relapse gets its paragraph because Aristotle is merciful. If today you found a cheap pleasure in something you meant to leave, do not turn the miss into a name. Do the next instance well, and then the next. Store a little discomfort on the side of the act you want to starve. Make access slower. Make company better. Make alternatives closer at hand. Store a little comfort on the side of the act you want to feed. Set the cue where your morning I will meet it. Set the steps so small your evening mind cannot argue. Habits do not fall in a day, and they do not rise in a day. Taste is trained as bread is leavened, quietly, with patience, away from drafts. If you are listening now with the lamp already low, let the lesson settle in the simplest way. Tonight you are training the taste for rest. Make the room kind for it. A glass within reach. A darker corner where the screen does not speak. 3 small lines of thanks placed where your thoughts usually pace. Feel the first soft pleasure of a good choice made at a human hour. Let that be the note your body remembers. Pleasure on the side of the fitting act. Pain, not scolding, just the honest pinch, on the side of the miss. That is how habits stick. That is how a day, and then a life, begins to prefer what helps. Aristotle's mean is not the middle of a ruler. It is the fit of a coat. 2 people can stand in the same winter and need different cloth. The mean, he says, is the act that suits a real person, in a real hour, for a real aim. Too little misses the work. Too much breaks the tool. The right measure lets life go on without squeaking. Think of a lamp wick. Turned down too far, the flame chokes and smokes. Turned up too high, it gutters and wastes the oil. Set just so, the light is steady and the room is kind. That just so is the mean. He draws the picture with familiar pairs so the mind can feel the balance. Courage sits between cowardice and rash display. Generosity sits between tight-fisted keeping and empty-handed show. Temperance sits between chasing every appetite and treating the body like a stone. Truthfulness sits between boast and self-belittling. Wit sits between cruel clowning and dull weight. Friendliness sits between quarrelsome edge and sticky flattery. In each case, the middle is not a dull average. It is a live fit that changes with person, role, and circumstance. A soldier's mien on a wall is not a child's mien in a schoolyard. Noon on a festival is not dawn in a sick room. The measure is the work that must be done and the people who must be kept whole while it is done. Because the mean is a fit, you find it by feeling as well as by rule. Aristotle hands you a simple test you can keep in your pocket. If you lean one way, what harm appears? If you lean the other, what harm appears? Which harm is smaller, nearer, or more easily repaired? Move toward the harm that costs less. Then correct by small steps until the act begins to feel smooth in the hand. A good carpenter does not guess the pressure that makes a clean cut. He learns it by the sound the blade makes and the curl of the shaving. You will learn the measure of courage by the small relief that follows a hard truth told at the right time. You will learn the measure of generosity by the quiet a gift leaves in the room when it neither shames the receiver nor empties tomorrow's cupboard. He warns against the easy mistake, calling the mean moderation, as if virtue were always half. It is not. Sometimes the fitting act is very small. Sometimes it is large and costly. The mean is measured against the end. If a house is burning, The fitting courage is quick and strong. If a friend needs a listening ear, the fitting courage is gentle patience that refuses to fix. If a charity can be kept alive with a modest gift, the fitting generosity is modest. If a neighbor's rent is due tonight, and you are the one who can cover it without breaking a promise elsewhere, the fitting generosity may be large. The mean is not timid. It is exact. To make this live, Aristotle points to 4 dials you can turn with your own hand. When, toward whom, how much, and in what manner. The same words, at a different hour or to a different person, can be virtue or vice. The same gift, given with a ledger in the heart, spoils what the coins intended. The same truth, thrown like a stone, becomes harm rather than help. So you check, is this the time in which this can be received? Is this the person to whom this belongs? Is this the amount that serves the aim without creating a new wound? Is this the tone that a tired ear can carry? When these dials are set with care, the act passes quietly through the room and leaves it better than it found it. Finding the mean is easier with practical wisdom nearby, the steady guide who asks what is truly being aimed at. Imagine 2 handles on every choice. One handle is labeled "my feeling right now." The other is labeled "the common good" in this scene. If you always pull the first, you will call your preference the mean and wonder why rooms grow tense around you. If you train your hand to pull the second, your feeling settles into its proper size and begins to help rather than rule. This is why Aristotle says we become just by doing just things. The doing educates the feeling. The mean is found by the act that serves a shared end without breaking the tool that must be used again tomorrow: your voice, your body, your trust with others. Because we are not instruments tuned once and left alone, Aristotle suggests a gentle calibration each evening. Choose one corner of the day and ask, where did I give too little? Where did I give too much? Where did the act feel right in my hands? And leave the room calm. Write 1 line for tomorrow, a smaller portion here, a longer listen there, a sentence that states the fact before the adjective. The corrections are small on purpose. A ship does not spin the wheel hard at every swell. It keeps a heading with touch and patience. The mean becomes yours by these touches. Environment helps. Make forms that invite the right measure before willpower is asked to shout. A fixed window for messages keeps helpful responsiveness from swelling into constant availability. A plate and cup laid out the night before keep temperance from becoming a fight with an empty fridge. A budget that pays what is owed first keeps generosity from performing while justice goes hungry. These forms are not chains. They are grooves that guide the hand until the hand remembers. There are seasons and roles. Aristotle is practical about this. A new parent's mean for sleep, food, and work is not a student's mean. A season of grief bends the measure for speech and speed. A time of harvest bends the measure for rest. The aim does not change, human flourishing in company, but the steps do. To keep the mean from hardening into pride, hold it with the reserve clause the old philosophers loved. I will do this if nothing prevents. If prevention comes, illness, duty, and unexpected need, you adjust without turning the change into a story about failure. The coat is altered, the winter is still kept at bay. Finally, Aristotle asks you to notice the feel of the right measure so you will recognize it when it returns. The right courage leaves a body a little lighter, not inflated. The right temperance leaves an hour open, not hollow. The right generosity leaves the bond straighter, not tangled with gratitude debt. The right truthfulness leaves the mirror clear, not cracked by a flourish. Store these sensations. They are the sound of a tool meeting wood at the proper angle. In time you will reach for that sound without thinking. And this is what he means when he says that virtue becomes a second nature, a path across the field that guides the next step even when you are tired. Let this be enough for now. Tomorrow we will set a name to the guide that tunes these measures. Practical wisdom, the craft of knowing what is needed here, now, with these people. For tonight, Turn the wick to the height that gives you light without smoke. That is the mean in your own room. That is the lesson kept. Aristotle gives a name to the quiet guide that keeps habit from becoming a march with no music. He calls it practical wisdom, phronesis, and he means the craft of seeing what is needed here, now, with these people, and choosing a fitting act that serves a human good. It is not book learning and not cleverness. It is the steadiness that comes from experience, attention, and an honest aim. Where rules are too stiff and appetite too loud, practical wisdom stands at the bench and asks calm questions. What is the end worth serving? What means would reach it without breaking other goods? What can be done by these hands today? Habits provide readiness, like tools laid out in a row. Practical wisdom picks the right tool and the right pressure so the wood does not split. He separates it from two neighbors so we do not confuse the workshop. Skill knows how to make things, boats, shoes, speeches, and can be hired for any end at all. Science knows what is always or mostly true and reasons from fixed premises. Practical wisdom knows particulars. It lives in the weather of human rooms. It does not only say truth is good. It says, tell this truth to this person at this hour in a tone that keeps the bond and moves the work. The wise eye notices small facts that theory overlooks. Who slept badly? Which promise was made in a rush? Where a quiet fear is hiding under a loud complaint. It moves by good deliberation, not by impulse and not by delay made into a habit. Deliberation, for Aristotle, is a gentle art with steps you can feel in your breath. First, name the end plainly. Not win, not be right, but something serviceable. Keep trust, finish the task cleanly, protect the vulnerable, keep the house able to feed itself tomorrow. Second, list the ways to that end without scolding or theater. Third, measure costs that are real, time, coin, fatigue, attention borrowed from other duties, and keep the common good on the table while you count. Fourth, choose the handle you can grip today, then act without fuss. If the choice proves poor, practical wisdom does not brood. It corrects course by the next small act that reduces harm. The point is not to predict everything. It is to steer with eyes open and hands that do not panic. Because ends govern means, practical wisdom keeps company with virtue. A clever mind can plot any path at all. A wise mind refuses bad destinations. You do not deliberate about whether to cheat. You deliberate about how to be fair when time is short and tempers are warm. You do not deliberate about whether to be cruel. You deliberate about how to be truthful in a way a tired ear can still carry. In this way, the virtues set the fence posts and wisdom strings the wire. Courage says, do not run from the cost that belongs to you. Temperance says, do not spend more than the good requires. Justice says, divide the load and the praise with even hands. Wisdom listens to each and then sets the pace. Experience lends this craft its calm. Aristotle trusts the person who has seen many dawns and closed many shops, not because age is magic, but because particulars have been handled and stored. The wise face remembers what happened the last time a letter was sent in anger. The wise hand remembers the weight of a promise made lightly and paid for dearly. This memory is not bitterness, it is inventory. It keeps you from buying the same mistake twice. If you are young in years or simply new in a role, you borrow experience by asking for counsel. Practical wisdom is not ashamed to knock on a neighbor's door and say, "You have done this before. What did you wish someone had told you?" Then it thanks the answer and still takes responsibility for the choice. Aristotle gives the wise person a small set of instruments. Good understanding listens beneath words and hears aims. Sound counsel finds the middle course between dithering and charge. Right judgment lands the decision without theater. None of these shout. You can practice them in rooms no one will ever film. Before a meeting, write the end in one sentence that a tired person would understand. During the meeting, state the common aim before the disagreement and ask the next small question that moves the room toward it. After the meeting, Send the short note with one next step, a who, and a when. At home, turn from the screen when a familiar voice says your name. The end there is not inbox zero. It is a bond that grows by being answered. Because feelings carry color into the hour, practical wisdom does not chase them from the workshop. It educates them. Fear is invited to speak in numbers, not in fate words. Desire is invited to tell the truth about its aftertaste, not just its first 5 minutes. Anger is told it may not write the email. It may draft it, and then watch as calmer hands edit the heat away. Joy is asked to check that the celebration does not spend tomorrow's rent. In time, the feelings cooperate. They are not enemies. They become advisors who know their place at the table. Wisdom is the chair at the head, thanking each, refusing rule to any. He pairs wisdom with time in 2 directions. Sometimes the right act is swift, a door held before a shoulder touches it, a rumor stopped before it grows legs, an apology sent before pride stiffens and breaks what was still bendable. Sometimes the right act is slow, a policy changed with notice so the innocent are not surprised, a boundary set when both hearts can hear it, a repair done after sleep so it will be clean. Practical wisdom sets tempo. It will not be hurried by someone else's panic, and it will not dawdle when delay is a kind of harm. You can feel the difference wisdom makes by trying 2 little scenes. In the first, you find a lost wallet. Skill can open it. Science can estimate the probability of return. Practical wisdom says, keep trust in the city. You look for identification. You choose a quick and safe path to the owner. You refuse any reward that would turn a decent act into a bargain. In the second, a friend asks whether a hard truth should be told. Cleverness can craft the sharpest phrasing. Practical wisdom asks, what is the aim? What time, place, and tone will protect both the truth and the friendship? What support will be needed after the telling so the truth can be useful? In both cases, the act that fits looks small. The fit is what makes it good. Because life topples when one good eats all the others. Wisdom guards proportion. Work is good. It cannot be all. Rest is good. It cannot be all. Care for strangers is good. Care for your own household is also good. Practical wisdom arranges the week so no single good devours the rest and calls the feast virtue. It builds forms that help. Windows for messages so responsiveness does not become a life. Meals at a table so screens do not become a diet. A budget that pays what is owed first so generosity does not perform while justice goes hungry. The forms are not cages. They are grooves that keep the cart from drifting into the ditch when attention is thin. Aristotle's wise person also uses the reserve clause that frees the heart from quarrels with weather. I will do this if nothing prevents. If prevention comes, illness, duty, a small human emergency, wisdom adjusts without inventing a story about failure. The intention is kept, the method bends. A meeting becomes a note. A run becomes a walk with a hand to hold. A plan becomes soup and bread for a neighbor whose day collapsed. This is not flimsiness. It is fidelity to the end with a humble respect for the world's interruptions. By evening, practical wisdom prefers a short notebook to a speech. What end did I serve? Where did I overspend a good? What small setting would make tomorrow's choice easier to fit? One line. State the shared aim first. Another. Put the tool where a stranger would look. Another. Turn the wick down sooner. You do not need grand vows. You need furniture arranged so that the next act can be done without searching. The city is kept not by declarations, but by a million fitting moves that almost no one notices. Let the lamp lower now. Habits are your laid-out tools. Practical wisdom is the hand that reaches for the right one at the right time, with the right pressure for the sake of a life that works in company. In the next stretch, we will step outside your door and watch how character is formed together, by imitation, by roles, by examples that do not make speeches. For tonight, let the wise question be small enough to ask as you drift. What would help? Gently, right here. Then let the body answer with stillness, and sleep take the watch. Aristotle does not picture the self as a sealed room. He pictures a small workshop with doors and windows open to a street. What you do at your bench is yours, but the light that lets you see comes from outside, and the sounds that set your pace often begin in other hands. Habits grow in this traffic. Children learn by watching the way adults pick up a tool and put it down. Neighbors learn by noticing who returns a borrowed thing on the day promised. A city learns from its office hours and its market scales and the tone its elders use when they disagree in public. Character, in this view, is both personal and shared. You lay the path across your field, yes, but the field belongs to a countryside of paths, and your line is easier to walk when it meets other lines that keep to their measure. So Aristotle leans on imitation without embarrassment. Before a person can define courage, they must see someone stand steady at a cost. Before a person can define justice, they must watch someone give the exact change and the exact thanks. The body copies first, the cadence of a calm voice, the pause before a hard sentence, the way a hand sets a cup down so it will not wake a sleeping child. Later, the mind wraps language around the picture and calls it virtue. This is why he sends the young to good company and why the old are reminded, gently, that their ordinary posture is a kind of public lesson. We do not get to choose whether we teach. We only choose what our presence teaches. The rush of appetite or the ease of enough. The shrug of no one will know, or the quiet of, I will do it properly anyway. He folds roles into this lesson, so we do not act as if rooms do not matter. In a shop you are a proprietor or a clerk, and the habits proper to each keep commerce human. In a court you are a judge or a petitioner, and the habits proper to each keep judgment human. In a household you are parent, child, guest, host, roles that change with the hour, and the habits proper to each keep the house open without chaos. A role is not a costume for pride. It is a promise about which duties you will carry and which ones you will leave for the next person. When everyone tries to be the whole play, the play breaks. When each speaks their line cleanly and leaves space for the others, a common good appears that no one alone could have produced. Habits fit these roles the way a tool fits a joint. The same courage looks different in a nurse than in a soldier, not because the virtue changes, but because the work and the risk do. To help roles and imitation do their work, Aristotle trusts custom. Those forms a community repeats until they teach without speeches. A bell that rings at the right times is a lesson in punctuality you can hear. A market that closes its tills with honest totals is a lesson in trust you can count. A city that keeps old shade trees and builds benches under them is a lesson in temperance and hospitality you can sit on. In our smaller rooms, the customs are simpler but no less powerful. A table where phones are left aside. A first and last 5 minutes of a meeting spent naming the shared end and the next small step. A practice of thanking the invisible labor that keeps the light on and the water clean. These customs are grooves worn into the day by many feet. They guide the next foot without the strain of constant decision. Because crowds can also train vices, Aristotle asks for discrimination about which rooms you frequent. Clubs that laugh at cruelty teach the hand to enjoy a cut it should not enjoy. Workplaces that reward speed while quietly pricing errors into someone else's day teach injustice under a cheerful name. Online places where contempt is a sport will sell you their posture by the hour until your shoulders forget any other angle. This is not a call to flee the city. It is a call to choose neighborhoods, physical and digital, whose public acts you would be willing to copy when you are tired. If you cannot leave a bad room tonight, you can still plant one counter habit where you stand. Praise what deserves praise. Refuse to make theater of anger. Name the shared aim first. A single steady note does not drown a band, but it keeps your own instrument in tune. Aristotle likes exemplars, living or remembered, because a concrete life solves puzzles that abstract rules leave open. A teacher who returned papers on time, even when no one watched. a foreman who never raised his voice, but whose crew moved quickly anyway, a friend who apologized before being asked and then changed the process that had made the apology necessary. These are images that stick to the hands. If you have such a person near, borrow their bench for an hour in your imagination before a hard task. Ask, how would she set this up so the right thing happens almost by itself? If your exemplar is a book, read a page aloud in the morning and let the cadence set your own. If your exemplar is a memory, tell the story out loud sometimes so the picture stays bright enough to imitate. The traffic moves both ways. You are someone else's picture whether you like it or not. Aristotle makes this thought gentle, not heavy. You do not need to perform goodness. You need to do small good things reliably. Return the message in the window you keep so that responsiveness does not devour your life, yet still keeps the weave tight where other lives hang from yours. Put tools where a stranger would look first, so the next pair of hands loses no minutes to your private system. State the shared aim before the disagreement, so that new mouse in the room learn the order without being lectured. Hold a door, yield a lane. Set your cart back where carts go. A city is a mosaic of such unremarkable acts. Habit makes them possible. Example makes them contagious. Because we borrow tone from our surroundings, design the surroundings with kind bias. Labeled shelves, clear calendars, start and stop rituals, shared definitions of done, a custom of writing down decisions immediately so no one argues later with fog. These are not fussy. They are merciful. They spare attention for work and care, which is where virtue lives most of its hours. A family that says grace, or a workplace that begins with a minute of quiet, or a studio that cleans the bench before closing. Each is building a small ramp on which the next day can roll without scraping. Over time, these forms add up to a place where even a new person can learn the mean by walking it. There will be friction. Habit in one person meets raw appetite in another. Example offered is mocked. A role is demanded without its duties. Aristotle's answer is patience joined to correction. Correct quietly, with facts first, and in a tone that can be received. Praise in public the fittings that help. That recap spared us 30 minutes tomorrow, and move past failures without engraving them on anyone's forehead. Where harm continues, justice may ask for firmer lines. Even then, the manner should aim at repair, not victory. Communities are living things, not machines. They respond best to gardeners who cut and tie with care. He folds friendship into all of this, because friends, for Aristotle, are partners in the construction of the good. There are friendships of use and of pleasure, but the highest kind is a companionship in which each wishes the other's flourishing for its own sake and helps supply the conditions for it. In such company, habit accelerates. You see what you mean to do reflected back with encouragement and sometimes with gentle dissent. You are reminded of ends when you get lost in means. You are protected from pride when you want to make a rule out of your own preference. A single conversation with such a friend can move a week back to its course. At day's end, bring the thought home to one room where you actually live. If you want honesty in the house, let there be a place where keys always go and a time when plans for tomorrow are spoken simply. If you want moderation, let there be plates sized for ordinary hunger and a bedtime that most nights keeps its promise. If you want fairness, let tasks be named and rotated and gratitude be spoken toward the hands that do the work no one sees. None of this is grand. All of this is teachable. The child, the guest, the tired partner, even the future you who will wake in this room tomorrow. They will learn by what the room asks and what the room forgives. Let the workshop quiet now. The street outside is still there. The light from other windows is still traveling. The habits of a city are still being written in small strokes by thousands of hands. Your part tonight is smaller. Set the few things where morning will find them. Fold the roll you wore today and hang it on its hook. Be, for this hour, only a sleeper in a common town, doing your small share to keep it gentle by letting rest have its turn. In the morning, When the doors open and the traffic begins, your example will rejoin the stream, and someone, unseen, will copy one decent thing you did without thinking. That is how communities teach. That is how habits in company take root. Aristotle has a plain word for the moment when we know the better course and still drift toward the easier one. He calls it akrasia, weakness of will. Its neighbor, akrasia, is self-possession, wanting the wrong thing but choosing the right act anyway. Above both stands settled virtue, where wanting and choosing agree. Most of us live in the middle lands. We see the good, appetite tugs, the hand hesitates at the latch. Aristotle does not sneer at this. He treats it as ordinary weather and gives us ways to shelter without pretending the wind has stopped. He begins with clarity. Weakness of will is not ignorance. It is knowledge and used at the moment of choosing. The mind keeps the rule in a drawer and reaches instead for an excuse left on the counter. So he asks us to bring the rule out before the heat rises. Name the end in one short line where you will see it at the exact hour you usually miss. Return messages kindly by 5. Stop at enough. State the shared aim first. This is not magic. It is furniture. When appetite arrives noisy and close, you want the better sentence closer. Because heat shrinks foresight, he recommends cooling moves small enough to carry in a pocket. Drink water before you answer. Stand up and look out a window before you click buy. Read what you plan to send aloud in the tone you would use if a child were asleep in the next room. If the sentence wakes the child, it is not the right sentence. Count 5 breaths with a longer exhale. The body's pace teaches the mind a slower meter. Say not yet instead of no, buying a minute in which the better self can arrive. None of these cancel desire. They right-size it long enough for choice to take the hinge. Aristotle's larger tools are predecisions, forms that choose for you when attention is thin. Set a budget that pays what is owed first. Generosity and temperance stop wrestling each month. Keep a reply window and shut the door outside it. Responsiveness holds its mean without becoming a life. Put sweets where a step and a thought are required. Put fruit in the bowl on the path your hand already walks. Log out of the site that sells you fog. Log into the document that holds the day's real work. You are not weaker for arranging the room. You are wiser for letting form carry fidelity when feeling is busy elsewhere. He pairs this with the discipline of small handles. Make the right act tiny enough to do now. 1 bill paid, 1 line drafted, 1 shelf cleared, 1 apology sent in a sentence that names the miss and the repair. Do not demand heroics at 3 in the afternoon from a mind that has been a citizen all day. Repetition, not theater, builds the state you want to live in. And when appetite returns, as it will, meet it with a rival desire that belongs to the good. The relief that follows a promise kept, the quiet of a room left orderly for the next worker, the respect of a future self who won't have to manage the mess you could have avoided. When the miss happens, keep the repair clean and immediate. Aristotle does not want you to engrave failure into identity. Ask 3 questions and only 3. What exactly happened? What part was mine? What is the smallest next act that reduces harm? Then do that act without speeches. Send the correction, set the timer, throw away the bait. Tell the truth you avoided, in a tone that can be carried. The aim is to keep one stumble from calling its friends. In music, a wrong note is mended by the next bar in time. In character, a wrong turn is mended by a quiet return to the path without marching bands. Because we often fall in company, borrow witness and help. Tell a friend the window in which you will finish the thing that keeps escaping. Swap proof. I sent the note, not to be policed, but to let friendship lend you its steadiness. In a household or team, make the good easy for everyone. Shared checklists, visible clocks, decisions written where eyes can find them. Praise the right motion specifically when you see it. Your recap just saved us 30 minutes tomorrow. So the pleasure sits next to the act and teaches taste. Aristotle also watches for the stories that make weakness look noble. I work best at the last minute. I'm just passionate. I have high standards, said when standards have become a way to never ship. He is gentle but firm. If a sentence gives appetite a crown, retire the sentence. Replace it with something truer and less flattering. I avoid the start. I chase the first 5 minutes of rush. I polish to postpone. Honesty clears fog and lets practical wisdom steer. The point is not to scold, it is to steer with facts. Temperance and courage both help here. Temperance says, reduce exposure to the bait you habitually bite. One fewer tab, one fewer bag in the cupboard, one fewer late hour in which all decisions worsen. Courage says, pay the small cost now rather than the larger cost later. Send the awkward line, log the expense, ask for the check, make the call that keeps the roof from leaking. Join to justice. They ask you not to shift your missed duty onto another back and call it fate. Weakness is human. Exporting its bill is unkind. By evening, let repair end in a forgiving audit. Where did I keep my aim when appetite tugged? Where did I slide? And which form would have saved me? What tiny change tomorrow will put the better handle closer to my hand? Write one line. Move one object. Tell one person what you intend. Add the reserve clause, if nothing prevents, so weather cannot tempt you into drama. Then sleep. The shopkeeper closes the till even on days when trade was poor. The point is to be able to open again with order. Next, we'll bring this steadiness to 3 ordinary arenas: attention, speech, and time. So the day itself becomes a kindly form that carries you when will is thin. For now, let weakness be met with proportion, repair be small and soon, and rest be the last good choice of the hour. Aristotle asks us to shape the tools we use most, and the first is attention. He does not treat attention as a spotlight you must hold overhead until your arms shake. He treats it as a lamp set close to the work. Move the lamp. Clear the bench. Let the circle of light be small enough that the mind does not have to guard 5 doors at once. When you begin a task, name it in one plain sentence so the hand knows what the eye is looking for. Close the tab that belongs to another hour. Put the phone where you cannot reach it without standing. Lay out only the papers that belong to this step. These are not acts of heroism. They are forms that spare your will so repetition can do its quiet work. Attention strengthens when the room helps rather than heckles. Because the mind tires, Aristotle favors short watches. Work in a span you can keep without strain, then step back before the flame smokes. Stand, drink water, touch daylight with your eyes. Name the next move and sit again. The break is not a betrayal of effort. It is how effort survives the afternoon. If you must hold a long stretch, change posture and tool so the same muscles are not asked to carry the entire hour. A reader stands to dictate. A clerk switches from numbers to words. A parent moves from talk to washing dishes where hands can think. Variety within purpose keeps the instrument from warping. The second tool is speech. Words are the cords we throw from one shore to another so work can cross. Aristotle measures speech not by cleverness, but by service. Say the fact before the feeling. Say the shared aim before the disagreement. Ask the small question that moves the room one step toward that aim. When correction is needed, place the fault on the table rather than on a chest. This step is missing, not you always. Where praise is due, make it specific so the praised hand knows which motion to repeat. Temper tone the way you temper steel. Heat, then cool. Read important lines aloud once before you send them. If the sentence would wake a sleeping child in the next room, it is not ready. Truthfulness, for Aristotle, is a habit that saves time. Exaggeration must be explained later. Concealment must be guarded with new words that hide the old words. A plain account frees the next hour to do new work. Yet he does not make plainness harsh. The mean here lies between boast and self-belittling, between bluntness that bruises and softness that confuses. The fit will change with audience and hour. A tired ear can carry fewer syllables. A frightened ear needs a bridge of kindness before it can carry truth. Practice the sentence that is both accurate and humane. It will be shorter than you think and kinder than your first draft. Guard against talk that pretends to be work. Meetings love to swell until they borrow the time owed to quiet tasks. Keep beginnings and endings honest. Open with the shared end. Close with one next step, a who, and a when. Write decisions where eyes will find them tomorrow without argument. If a topic will not fit, set a real time for it, and let today's room be released. Gossip also dresses as labor. It spends attention on scenes you cannot change and trains the mouth toward contempt. Aristotle is not scolding. He is frugal. Spend speech where it buys trust or clarity. Save the rest for silence, which is not nothing. It is the floor on which good words can stand. Time itself is the third tool, and he treats it as a budget that pays the most human debts first. Morning light is for beginnings and for work that needs a clean edge. Midday is for exchange with other hands. Late day is for finishing, for sweeping the bench, for notes that carry kindness into tomorrow. Keep windows rather than chains. A reply window protects responsiveness without letting it devour all hours. A planning window protects foresight without letting dreams postpone duty. A shutting down window protects rest, so the mind returns in the morning fit for use. These windows are small fences that keep the goats out of the garden and the garden from wandering into the road. Because life will not obey a grid, Aristotle adds slack to every plan. Leave margins the way a printer leaves white around the words so the page can be handled. When a delay enters, you spin the margin rather than the machine. Call this mercy for the future. You can feel it in the body. A day with margins breathes. A day packed to its edges pants and then blames the world for being alive. If you must choose what to drop performances that exist to soothe pride. Keep the task that another person's day depends on. Keep the promise about time. Keep the small duty that prevents a larger repair later. This is justice applied to clocks. Habits of time also mean habits of ending. Close the ledger even when trade was poor. Return tools to where a stranger would look first. Write one honest line about what helped and what hindered. Lay out the first object tomorrow's hand should touch. Add the reserve clause, if nothing prevents, so weather cannot turn a plan into a quarrel. These closures do not take long. They pay interest while you sleep. The day opens easier because the last one put itself away. When attention, speech, and time are shaped by these small forms, character finds a gentle current to travel in. You begin to like the feel of a clear desk and a single task. You begin to like the sound of a sentence that moves work forward without taking a bite out of anyone. You begin to like the steadiness of hours that keep their promises. Pleasure shifts to the side of the fitting act, and pain to the side of the miss, which is Aristotle's quiet test of a habit that will last. Let the room dim now. Set the lamp where the next page will need it. The tools are simple. Their shape is your life's shape. In the last chapter, we will tie them into an evening pattern that keeps the whole from wobbling. For tonight, breathe once more and let time do its kind work while you rest. Aristotle trusts patterns that are small, repeatable, and kind. The day does not need a grand finale. It needs a closing move that lets tomorrow begin without searching. Think of a shop at dusk. The keeper does not deliver a speech. He sweeps the bench, ties the twine, writes a line in the book, turns the wick down, and locks the weather out. Character is kept the same way, by a few steady motions that fit a human hour. What follows is a quiet pattern you can keep most nights. It is not a rule to scold you. It is a form to spare your will so goodness can repeat. Begin with one line about the end you served. Write it in plain words so the mind does not argue. Kept a promise about time. Told the fact without heat. Moved the work that other hands needed. Naming the end first teaches taste. Pleasure begins to live on the side of what is truly good, not on the side of noise. If the line feels thin, add one detail, no more. Then stop. The point is a direction, not a diary. Next, Do a small square audit that fits the virtues. For corners, wisdom, one place you let facts lead, one place you let hurry lead. Courage, one cost you met without theater, one you delayed. Temperance, one boundary that kept your peace, one excess you can trim. Justice, one even dealing, one debt you will clear. Keep each note the size of a ticket stub. The mean lives in these small corrections. Too much review breeds blame. Too little leaves tomorrow vague. The middle keeps motion, but no smoke. Set forms that choose for you when attention is thin. Lay out the first object tomorrow's hand should touch. Put the tool where a stranger would look first. Place a glass where night hands can find it. Draft the opening line of the note you keep postponing. These are not decorations. They are grooves in the day. When morning comes, your feet will fall where many feet have already fallen, and the path will help you. Now attend to repair while the board is still warm. If you missed, reduce harm by one act that is small and soon. Move the money you forgot to move. Schedule the call you dodged. Write the apology in a single sentence that names the fault and the change. Do it now if kindness allows. If not, stage it, address written, time chosen, reminder set. So the promise is a thing with weight, not a cloud. This is akrasia in practice. You may not yet want what is best, but you choose it anyway, and the wanting will learn. Turn to speech and calm its tools. Copy down the shared aim for tomorrow's meeting in one line that a tired ear can carry. Park arguments in a box labeled facts first. If you owe praise, write it while the details are fresh so the praised hand will know which motion to repeat. If you owe silence, promise it and keep it. Not every truth needs tonight. These small settings save hours. They also protect bonds. Truth told at the right time, in the right tone, by a person who has already swept their own corner. This is the shape that endures. Tend to tension by shrinking the field. Close what belongs to other hours. Lay out only what belongs to the first watch. Put the phone to charge far enough away that you must stand to reach it. A lamp set close to the work is kinder than a floodlight that blanches the room. You are not an engine to be redlined at midnight. You are a tool on loan to a workshop. Maintenance is duty, not indulgence. Give time its fences. Mark a reply window. Mark a planning window. Mark a shutting down window. Then add margins the way a printer leaves white around words so the page can be held. When delay arrives, you will spin the margin rather than the machine. If you must drop something, drop the performance that serves pride. Keep the task that another person's morning depends on. Keep the promise about time. Keep the small duty that prevents a larger repair. Invite company into the pattern without crowding the hour. Send one short note of thanks to the person whose steadiness changed you today. Ask one friend a useful question. What small habit saved you this week? If a housemate shares your room, speak one sentence that sets tomorrow's rhythm. Who leaves first? Who needs quiet? Who will carry which small load? Roles agreed at night are less brittle by day. Add the reserve clause that frees you from quarrels with weather. I will do these small plans, if nothing prevents. If prevention comes, you will adjust without inventing a story about failure. The intention is kept, the method bends. A run becomes a walk with a hand to hold. A list becomes the two items that actually feed a household. This is proportion applied to plans. Close with gratitude that works. Name 3 useful things that did not have to happen. A door held, a sentence that made the task clear, light that stayed on during a storm. Gratitude restores scale. It keeps the mind from acting like a manager who only notices what breaks. Then put away the role you wore. Hang it on its hook. For this hour, be only a sleeper. The city is kept by a million modest closures. Yours is one. Lower the wick. If a worry knocks, give it a card that says, tomorrow, first watch, and place the card where morning eyes will see it. If a grief sits down, let it sit without speeches. If a joy asks to be noticed, nod and let it pass the lamp once. Breathe in as if you are opening a window to night air. Breathe out as if you are laying a cloth over a cooling loaf. The bench is clear. The book has its line. The tool is returned. That is enough. We have walked, with Aristotle for company, through the slow craft of making a life that holds. We named habit as a path you lay by walking. We set repetition to the right size. We taught pleasure and pain where to stand. We felt the mean that fits the hour. We borrowed the steady hand of practical wisdom. We let community, example, and friendship do their work. We met weakness with repair. We shaped attention, speech, and time so the day could carry you. None of it was dramatic. All of it was durable. You do not need to remember every line. You need a room that makes the next fitting act easy. Set one form tonight. Keep one promise tomorrow. Speak one fair sentence that leaves the bond stronger than it found it. Then rest. The world will still have weather in the morning. You will still have a hand for the hinge that moves. Let sleep do its quiet repairs. The path across the field will be a shade darker when you wake, and your feet will find it sooner.